He's an activist for liberty. He's a Christian. He's an entrepreneur and a husband. And now, Jordan Scott Pace is running for the South Carolina House District 117 seat. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with him one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Jordan Pace, it's so good to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Well, I do my research a lot, and I went back to the Fitz News article that they wrote about you a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And it reads this: a staunch fiscal and social conservative will seek a low-country seat in the South Carolina House of Representatives this spring. Jordan Scott Pace, who describes himself as a, quote, Christian, husband, entrepreneur, and activist for liberty, unquote, announcing his candidacy for South Carolina House District 117 this week. Tell me why Jordan Scott Pace, why South Carolina House of Representatives?
So I've been interested in politics since I was about 12 years old. I remember having a conversation with my grandpa when I was 12, 13, but 2002, during the governor's race.
Right.
And we were having an argument about who would be a better governor, Peel or Sanford. So I was a fan of Sanford at the time. That was really the first kind of like political conversation I've had that I remember having. But ever since then, I've just been very intrigued and interested in politics in general, particularly on the state level. So I've kind of worked in and around that, even through college.
Right.
I was working for a group that was fighting the gas tax for a couple of years.
Right.
And we ran out of money, and it finally passed. And it started in the House of Representatives. So the guy that's in there now, so now it's kind of have to think against him personally.
Right.
But he voted for the gas tax. He voted for several other tax hikes that I don't think are very conservative. So House seats are a lot more winnable than like a Senate seat would be.
Sure.
Particularly, the guys in the Senate. My senator, Broadway's got like $350,000 in his campaign account. I'm 29 years old. I'm not raising $350,000 to run for Senate. So I think this is an attainable goal. It's something that's winnable, for an average person, rather than somebody who's extremely wealthy. Yeah.
And I know when I was listening to your podcast with CJ just last night, you basically say one of the reasons why you're running is because of the gas tax, the pension system, and there's a lot of, I hate to say it, ethics situations going on in Columbia.
Yeah.
Where are you on these issues right now? What's at the top of your list in your mind?
So of immediate concern to me is that our taxes stop going up. If you look, a lot of people are moving here, from Connecticut or Ohio.
Right.
People from Ohio get a lot of hate, and all that. I got good friends that moved here. I'm glad they're here. But people are moving here because the perception is, oh, we're a low tax state. It's easy to retire here.
Okay.
You get a lot more for your money. Which, if you just straight up do number comparisons like us to Connecticut, yeah, our taxes are generally lower. But if you look at it as a ratio of income, our taxes are not lower. The average family in Connecticut's making $85,000 a year. The average family here is making $38,000, and our income tax is 7%. They haven't changed the income tax bracket since 1975. So if you're making more than $14,500 a year, you're in the top tax bracket, which is that's baseline poverty level. You're in the top tax bracket there. We got the gas tax is a regressive tax. We got all these little nickel and dime here in Charleston County, for good grief. We get paid 11% on prepared foods. So who does that hurt most? It's the people who have the least. They're eating at fast food places, going to their second job. It's hitting them harder than it's hurting the wealthy guy who's got a chef that lives in his house. He didn't care. And prepared food tax is 11%. So the immediate concern to me is our taxes stop going up. In order to fix kind of the grand problems within the state, I think that's an ethics thing. That's something we got to really first shed light on issues. I don't know that I'm going to be the one to be able to fix everything, and that's fine. I would be satisfied with at least exposing the shady stuff that goes on in Columbia. And if somebody else comes in and fixes it and gets the credit, that's fine. I don't care. I just want to expose it, because I think when people know about it, they'll get mad enough to demand that it gets fixed. At least that's my theory, and I hope I'm right. But
And I know that another issue that's going on right now in Columbia that they just passed was the solar power bill.
well, it didn't pass in the House. It died in the House because of a kind of obscure constitutional maneuver that they did because it affected property taxes. And they said it required, the leadership said it required 2/3 majority of the House to pass, and it didn't. Unfortunately, my representative didn't even vote. He voted earlier that day. He just didn't care to vote on one way or the other, one way or the other, which was disappointing. If we're going to fix the grand utility issues, the only way that's going to get fixed is if we actually have a more free market in production. So we have some of the highest, if not the highest, electricity payments in the whole country. Our rates aren't quite as high as Hawaii, but as far as total bill, it's competitive with Hawaii, which is not where you want to be as far as like power rates. And it's that way because we have utility monopolies. The legislature has granted Duke, SCANA, and the Santa Cuba, which is state-owned, exclusive rights to produce power. So you don't have a choice. Wherever you live, you get one choice where you get to buy power from. And you can't even put, unless you're one of those 3% or less customers that solar's been capped at, you can't even necessarily put solar panels on your own house to produce your own electricity. So we really don't have, we have a Soviet-style power supply. What I would prefer to see is what something like Texas has. In Texas, they regulate the power transmission lines. So SCANA, Santa Cooper, whoever owns the power lines, they would still get their own power lines. Okay. But the state, an entity of the state would cap how much they can charge other companies to transmit that power over their lines. So if you had 100 acres of land and wanted to build a solar farm, put a bunch of solar panels out there, you could do that and sell that power to people using those lines. Okay. And what that does, what's done in Texas, so if you move to Texas, you go on the website, put in your address, or you'll get in the mail before you get there. Here's a list of like 30 different people you can buy power from. Here's the rates, here's kind of the reliability scores, you can look those up, and you get a choice. And what that's done is driven the cost down. It's created more jobs, and I actually talked to some linemen about this about a month ago, who worked for SCANA. Oh, yeah. And I said, guys, this might freak you out, but I'm going to say, well, we need a free market in this. And the first question I had was, well, won't we lose our jobs? I said, no, that's a lie. That's not what's happened in other places. If they're in a position like they're in now, where SCANA goes bankrupt, and they fire a bunch of linemen, those linemen have two choices if they want to stay in South Carolina on where to work. They can try to go to Duke, they can try to go to Santa Cooper. I would not recommend going to Santa Cooper right now because good chance they're going to get sold too. So they're stuck. Who are they going to go to? If we actually had a free market and we had 30 different power companies, 20, 10, even 10 different power companies you could choose from, if one of them went bankrupt, their employees could say, well, I'm going to go to one of these 9 other companies, get paid the same amount or more because there would be competition for their labor amongst those companies, which would drive or at least keep wages where they are or higher. So it would drop costs down, be better for the employees, and we wouldn't be in this quagmire, I think it's the nice way to say it, where the state is potentially on the hook for billions of dollars of debt of a private power company.
2 questions. A lot of people might be thinking, well, okay, who's running Columbia? Is it the lobbyists or is it the legislator when it comes to the issue of electricity?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you look before this year, the single, as far as if you break down contributions to campaigns, sure. To legislative campaigns, the sector of the economy that gave more to legislative campaigns than anybody else was utilities. Whether it was SCANA, Duke, one of their employee associations, the Electric Co-op Employee Association, utilities as a whole, and then executives from Santa Cooper. Santa Cooper can't contribute directly to that state entity. The executives from there did a lot. That they were the single largest by monetary value sector in the lobbying game in Columbia. And that's scaled back a little bit because now people are saying we don't want your money because it's toxic, it's tainted. So a couple of different groups have kind of moved into the forefront there. But for a long time, they wrote the checks, they got what they wanted. It seemed to be. Why else would the legislature pass the Base Load Review Act? 2007, that was a blank check. Go spend whatever you want, you can't go bankrupt. We'll bail you out. Which is insane. I mean, that is the definition of a perverse incentive. And we got what was expected from that. What any sane person would have looked at and said, yeah, this is going to be the result.
Describe to me the following one word, and these are basically issues from your website.
Sure.
Jobs.
Jobs. So South Carolina's been touted as a business-friendly state. We're very friendly to big businesses, which is fine. I want to be friendly to all businesses. We've been friendly to big businesses by giving them huge tax breaks and tax incentives and these big packages. What I think would be preferable, because that's when the government does that, that's basically saying we're smart enough to know what exactly the government or what exactly our economy needs, which again is what the Soviets tried. It's what Venezuela's tried. It's soft. It's kind of a soft crony socialism mindset, and it didn't work. What I would prefer to see is rather than give this specific company a tax break, why don't we just roll the taxes back to make it an even playing field? That would allow small businesses, which are really the engine of the economy, to be able to expand. We have the highest personal business property tax in the country. So if the College Charleston Library that we're in now, if it was a business, it would have to pay it would have to pay a yearly property tax on this table and that chair that you're sitting in. Any piece of property that the business owns never decreases its value to zero, and you have to pay a tax on it every year. And ours is the highest in the country. I think it's like 13% of the value. That is detrimental to small businesses. And the reason that Boeing gets around that, Volvo, Michelin, all these big companies, part of their packages is they don't own their big equipment, the big cranes, the big heavy equipment that Boeing would use. They don't own it. The state, the Department of Commerce buys those machines and then leases them at an undervalued price to those businesses as part of their package. So they don't get hit with this personal business property tax like small businesses do. And that's part of the state constitution, so that would take a big effort to get rid of, but it's something I think is necessary. So as far as jobs, I think evening the playing field by reducing the tax burden on individuals, small businesses that are basically individuals that run them, to be able to compete and innovate and have the resources to hire more people would be a more sensible and long-lasting effort on the jobs front, rather than the government giving specific benefits to people that write the big checks.
Okay, describe to me the following one word, guns.
Yep. So the Second Amendment, I think is very important. I think a lot of times the Second Amendment issue gets kind of contorted a little bit, where people say the Second Amendment gives us the right to own a gun, to own a weapon in self-defense. Really, it's there just to explain the government's responsibility to protect that right, that I believe is a natural right. If you look, especially, our system of government, our system of laws is based on English common law, everywhere but Louisiana. And they have their own little Napoleon thing, and that's why it's kind of weird. But the majority of the United States state and federal law is based on English common law. If you look through the history of English common law back to the Anglo-Saxons, we're talking like the 800s AD. One of the most fundamental rights through Magna Carta, through the English Bill of Rights, all the way to the very old English Charter of Wittens, where the Wittens were these assemblies that chose the kings in Anglo-Saxon times. It spelled out that the right to self-defense and to own weapons to defend yourself from criminals, from an overreaching government, was an integral part of English common law, which is why the English were generally the most free people in Europe through most of the Middle Ages and into the modern age. Even the name Saxon comes from this big long dagger that every Saxon man would carry, which kind of the equivalent of a 1080 handgun. And that was a sign that they were a free man and they would defend themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think this is an integral part of defending the rest of our rights, is based on this idea that you own yourself, you are the primary defender of yourself, even if you have to defend yourself from an invasive government. And I think that's what the founders, if you go back and look at the debates and go look at the ratifying conventions of the Bill of Rights, that's what they were talking about. In Virginia, it came up, the debate about cannons came up.
Okay.
And they said, James Madison was part of this discussion, George Mason, all these founders, big names.
Right.
And they decided in that Virginia Ratification Convention that, yes, a private individual can own a cannon. Because they were talking about guys that have merchant ships.
Right.
They need cannons to defend themselves from pirates or whoever. So yeah, a private individual can own a cannon. The thing is pretty explicit. We could be talking about, a lot of folks on the left are like, well, you don't need a military-style weapon. A cannon's pretty military. I don't know of any normal civilian use, for a 10-foot, 10-ton iron cannon that shoots cannonballs. That's not something you need for home defense. So I think the spirit in the letter there of the Second Amendment, the whole idea of it is that you have a right to defend yourself. And that should not be infringed by the government because they're one of the primary entities you may have to defend yourself from. So that's my philosophy kind of guns.
Judicial reform.
Yeah, that's a good one. So a lot of people don't think about this. South Carolina is the only state in the whole country where the legislature has the entire control of the judicial branch of state government. So the legislature appoints and screens and then elects pretty much all the judges that aren't probate judges in the whole state. Supreme Court down to magistrate. No, Virginia kind of has a hybrid system, but nothing like ours. What that means is the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, all these lower courts are not independent of the legislature, which that was kind of the idea of having these three branches of government that have to check themselves. So the judicial branch doesn't check the legislative branch on any significant matters because they're up for re-election and the legislature is the one that re-elects them. They're also control their pay, their budgets, everything about it. So what I would love to see is rather than having this unequal, kind of perverted judicial branch, set it up like we do in the United States Constitution, where the governor would appoint a judge with the advice and consent of the Senate, or even the General Assembly, if we want to break it out to the whole thing, rather than right now we have this Judicial Merit Selection Committee. Okay. And their job ostensibly is to screen out unqualified people that shouldn't be judges. But what it's turned into is there are two guys in either house, the leader of each house, President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and then the respective chairman of the judicial committees basically run that committee. And if they don't like a particular judge, they're not getting through. And usually, we don't have elections, not actual elections within the House, because by the time that it comes to the election, there's already somebody selected. Everybody else is withdrawn. So you really only have one choice. It's rare, I think it was 2 years ago, that two people, and one guy wouldn't resign, he wouldn't withdraw from the race, and it was a big faux pas, it was a big deal. Because these guys, I see it all the time with judges, people that are trying to get on, like the Board of Regents, or the Board of Trustees for a school. They'll go down to the parking garage under the State House, because they can't go inside, especially the judges, they can't go inside the State House to lobby these guys. But they'll line up right at the entrance of the ramp, the park, where you go inside under the ramp. They'll just line up with their hand cards. Here you go, Mr. Representative, vote for me, Mr. Representative, vote for me. It's weird, just to see that. So I would prefer the governor appoint a judge with advice and consent of the Senate to make it an actual co-equal branch of government.
And you talked earlier about the budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Let me talk to you about roads. Where are you with this discussion?
So the reason I fought the gas tax for 2 years so hard isn't because I don't like taxes. to be upfront. But if we're going to have taxes, I would rather it be on a transactional level, kind of like a gas tax or sales tax, something where I choose to buy this thing and there's a tax associated with it, rather than income or property tax. So the reason I fought the gas tax so hard is the advocates for it said, oh, we need X amount of billions of dollars to fix the roads. My argument was, we don't know how much money we need to fix the roads because the system is so broken and corrupt, there's no way we can accurately know how much we need. And the only way to reform this messed up system, only leverage we have, is this gas tax that they want so bad. So unless the powers that be agree to reform the DOT, to change it so that its governance is not on a spoils system like a banana republic, whoever's got power gets to build the roads, that it instead goes into an actual needs-based system. So put it under the governor, let the governor appoint a Secretary of Transportation, and if they don't fix the roads, if they get, in their term, we fire the governor. Because right now, the system is whoever is the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, controls the DOT board, the DOT commission. And if you're not happy with that, if you're not happy with the roads not getting paid in your district, then you call your representative. Unless your representative is Jay Lucas up in Hartsville or Hugh Leatherman in Florence, right, you don't get any say in how the roads get fixed, because they're in charge. And it used to be, in Charleston, it was Glenn McConnell and Bobby Harrell in the 2000s. So that's when 526 got drawn up, kind of the implication was, the understanding was, Charleston had all the power, so we're going to set up $450 million to build these 5 miles of road, which if they had stayed in power, probably would have happened from the infrastructure bank. But when Mr. McConnell came over here to College Charleston, Mr. Harrell pled guilty to the stuff he pled guilty to, that power shifted to Florence. So now Florence they got real nice roads. Leatherman's 49% owner of Florence Concrete, which has gotten somewhere between $30 and $40 million in DOT contracts in the last 10 years, basically since he's been finance chairman and president of the Senate, which just smacks of corruption. So they get real great roads. But 10 years before Charleston had the power, before Mr. Harrell was Speaker of the House, it was David Wilkins in Greenville. Right. And so when I was a kid, it was David Wilkins, and that's when Greenville got real nice. That's when they built a couple new roads, expanded 85. Downtown Greenville got a lot of investment, and now Greenville's very, very nice. So rather than see this traveling, because it basically goes between the big cities or the big metro areas, and all these rural areas get left out. I mean, they get screwed. Same thing with education. That's where we're seeing the I-95 corridor, the corridor of shame. That's because we don't have a system of accountability. We have a system set up. It goes back to the 1895 Constitution. It's set up so the legislature has all of the power, and if you run the legislature, so if you're guys in leadership, you get the goodies, rather than doing what's best for everybody. So as far as transportation, we need to put it under the governor's office. If the governor, his Secretary of Transportation didn't do their job, if they don't get the roads fixed, in their term, we can all fire the governor. We can't all fire Hugh Leatherman, because he spent $1 million in his re-election 2 years ago in Florence. So even the people in Florence had a hard, even if they wanted to, it'd be difficult to get rid of them. But us in Charleston, somebody in Kershaw County or Abbeville has zero power to get the roads fixed the way the system is now.
Jordan Scott Pace, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Yeah, it was good to meet you.
Likewise.
Yeah, I watch these all the time, so it was cool to be on one.
Oh, thank you greatly. Hope to have you back.
Thanks.
I hope to interview your opponent as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.